Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. I've always cherished the beautiful environment surrounding my home, particularly the magnificent landmark trees that dot the landscape. These trees, deemed essential for preserving the fragile ecosystem due to the abundant rainfall and hilly terrain, held a special place in my heart. They not only prevented erosion but also provided shelter to countless creatures. However, my neighbor, with his distorted concept of personal boundaries, posed a constant threat to my property and the precious trees that adorned it. His misguided notion of greater good often led him to trespass onto my land and meddle with things without seeking my consent. Although occasionally his actions proved beneficial, such as pulling weeds near our shared property line, I made it clear that I did not condone his behavior. I urged him to approach me with any concerns or suggestions he might have rather than trespassing. Until that fateful incident, I regarded him as merely eccentric, never suspecting the lengths he would go to in pursuit of his misguided desires. It all began with his fixation on a particular tree situated on my property. According to him, the tree obstructed his view and cast excessive shade, thus causing harm to his beloved flowers. To my bewilderment, he had opted to plant the flowers in an area with limited sunlight, instead of utilizing other parts of his backyard. When I informed him that the tree was a landmark and legally protected, I expected him to understand and move on. Little did I know that his obsession with the tree would consume him. Every encounter thereafter involved him incessantly questioning me about plans to remove the tree or offering assistance in its removal. Despite reiterating my stance that the tree would remain untouched, except for necessary pruning, it seemed as though he heard an entirely different message. And then, one morning, I awoke to the unmistakable sound of a chainsaw. Rushing outside, my heart sank as I beheld the remnants of what was once a majestic tree. Caught in the act, my neighbor stood there, chainsaw in hand, grinning with a twisted sense of accomplishment. He had audacity to instruct me to clear away the logs and eradicate the unsightly stump, all while casually trespassing through a hole he had callously created in my fence. My fury knew no bounds, and I wasted no time reporting him for trespassing and destruction of my private property, a designated landmark. I sought compensation for the costs of hiring professionals to restore my yard and remove the stump, refusing to spend a single cent on his malicious act. Confident in my knowledge of tree law, I knew justice would be on my side. Recent cases in the area had demonstrated a strict stance against such transgressions. Both of us faced rigorous questioning regarding the tree's health, potential threats to nearby homes, and any evidence of instability. My neighbor, however, had no grounds to support his claim since there was nothing wrong with the tree. His feeble argument of the tree killing his flowers crumbled under scrutiny. According to the tree law, he was liable for triple the estimated cost of the landmark tree. While I couldn't keep the entire sum, as the town used a portion to replant an equivalent tree on my property, the remaining funds were rightfully mine. The judge made it clear that I must use the money to clear the space where the previous tree stood, making room for the new one. Consequently, I couldn't sue him for additional compensation for cleanup costs, as it fell under his financial obligations. In the end, he was ordered to pay a staggering $200,000 to the court for the destruction of the landmark. Regarding trespassing and the damaged fence, he received a mere warning. I opted not to pursue a restraining order, sensing that his face betrayed his realization that such actions would have severe consequences. As for the fence, he had 90 days to repair it, subject to inspection. The satisfaction I derived from witnessing his reaction to the court's decision was immeasurable. It served him right, considering the countless times I had explicitly informed him of the law. Word got around that he had taken out a second mortgage to gather the funds necessary to fulfill his obligations. The new tree, planted near the original spot, cast its comforting shade over that part of his yard once more, despite his ill-conceived efforts. While I didn't acquire a substantial financial windfall from the incident, my priority lay in the restoration of the environment. At the end of the day, I invested the remaining funds in a modest security system to monitor my property, ensuring that my neighbor would face the full weight of the law if he ever dared to trespass again. The next one is a pro-revenge story. When I got divorced, my alcoholic wife of 18 years had started another affair, this time with her addiction counselor. My lawyer and I laid a trap for them, just in case you don't know. Intimate relations between a counselor and a patient are very frowned upon by the regulatory bodies. And I was more than pissed after putting her through rehab, which cost $25K and I didn't have to do, only to have her fall back into her old behavior. Shortly before the divorce was finalized, I filed a complaint with the state body licensing health professions. Knowing they were in some peril because of their unprofessional relationship, I had already gotten him fired from a major teaching hospital. She had backed off her exorbitant demands. I paid her a very modest settlement, kept the house, got custody of the 3 tweenage kids, and received child support. Her lawyer naturally included a clause in the divorce where I had to agree to not say anything negative about her lover and their relationship. But the lawyer messed up and never asked if I had already filed charges and thus didn't require me to rescind them. Her lawyer had assumed I was just bad-mouthing them to neighbors and friends, and it never occurred to the lawyer that we were doing much more. When the Board of Health Professions responded to my complaint shortly after the divorce was finalized, I told them that it would take a subpoena to get me to testify. A subpoena trumps an agreement in a divorce settlement. They were happy to oblige. They stripped his license and placed him on a register of sanctioned health professionals. He never worked again. They were broke in a handful of years, and she divorced him when the money ran out. In the meantime, his mother had died, leaving a fair-sized estate, so it took longer than I expected. Oh, and the icing on the cake was that his wife and I traded notes, notably hotel receipts from the time of their affair, that helped each of us in our respective divorces. Justice was served. The next one is a petty revenge story. This happened when I had only just moved from home and got my own place. I was super proud of myself as I had saved like a demon and bought, with a mortgage obviously, my first place. It was a lovely little 2-bedroom flat in a slightly rough area, but I loved it, and it was all mine. My mom and stepdad came to visit for a few days, a few months after I was settled in. The flat was nicely decorated in my style with all my own furniture. One of the evenings they stayed, I had to work a late shift. They planned to go out for dinner and to the pub, so I left them to it. I came home at 11 p.m. and my mom had moved nearly all of the furniture around. All my books and kitchen stuff were moved to different shelves or cupboards. She even moved my bed in my room, so when I opened the bedroom door it hit the bed. I was pissed. So I angrily fixed what I could that night before going to bed. I spoke to her about it the next day and explained that it was my home and I had it how I liked it, so please stop. I put everything else back, which took hours. She grumbled the whole time, insisting that it looked better her way. On their last day, I nipped out to the shops to get us some nice bits for lunch, and in the hour I was gone, she had done it again. She had moved all my kitchen stuff around to where she liked it. Again, I told her off, stating that it was my house and my rules. She still maintained that it was better her way and that I should just let her crack on. Fine, I let her do what she wanted and put stuff back when they left. My revenge came when I went to visit their house 6 months later. While she was out at work one day, I rearranged every bit of furniture I could by myself. Everything. I swapped the dining room and living room furniture over so that you had to walk through the living room and across the hallway to get to the dining room. I swapped their bedroom and guest room curtains over. The windows were different sizes, so their new bedroom curtains were 2 feet too short. I even did pointless little things like moving the spoons to a different side of the drawer and moving every photo on the walls to a different wall. I rearranged the fridge as well. It took me 7 hours. My stepdad was home while I did it and laughed his head off the whole time. He refused to help but understood, so he let me crack on. Neither my stepdad nor I said anything when she got home. We just sat watching TV, which was now in what was their dining room, and I asked her how work was. She didn't say a word. She walked round the house, taking it all in for 20 minutes. Then she came and sat down, looked at me and said, "Point taken." They put it back to how it was the next time I visited. We haven't spoken of it since. The next one is a petty revenge story. My husband of 25 years decided he wanted to split up. I unsuccessfully begged him to change his mind and spent many nights crying on the bathroom floor. One thing to note is that I carried the health insurance for the family. He is self-employed. When he wouldn't change his mind, we filed for legal separation, and he moved out. In the meantime, I got a fantastic new job that covers 100% of the health and dental insurance premiums for the entire family, with a $100 deductible. Sweet. He is still allowed to be on my insurance since we are legally separated rather than divorced, and it costs me nothing to have him on my insurance. But I am petty as hell, so I charge him $400 a month for something that costs me $0. Of course, he is welcome to get insurance on his own in the marketplace, which would probably cost at least twice that amount for an equivalent policy. I make sure he knows it costs me nothing, nada, zip, to have him on my insurance, and that his $400/month payment is funding my upcoming trip to Spain. If you have a legal separation, getting a divorce in my state is just a matter of filing a form and paying $60. If I did that, he couldn't be on my insurance anymore, so he is basically paying me $400 a month not to file for divorce after not wanting to be married anymore. I love it. The next one is a malicious compliance story. When I was at the university, a friend landed a part-time job doing networking for a really small company and asked me if I wanted in because he also had other customers and was worried he wouldn't be able to handle them all. It was easy money, 12 hours per month, to basically maintain the network infrastructure, upgrade firmware on routers, check logs, run antivirus software, and install some software on computers. So I said yes. The company used to fix and sell printers and printer-related stuff. It was run by two ladies who were friends, let's call them May and June, but the CEO in function was May's husband, let's call him CEO Peter, who was also June's husband's best friend. The rest of the company consisted of accountant Peter, who shared the name with the CEO, some technicians who were never there, and two hard-working sales representatives. Basically, the accountant, technicians, and sales reps were the only ones doing work there. Even though May and June were also technically sales reps, they hardly ever made a call. May spent all day browsing the internet for things to buy. Her thing was shoes. June spent all day chatting with another guy, not her husband, who also shared the name with the CEO, let's call him Third Peter, and CEO Peter spent all day watching porn, yes, at work. May appeared to have no problems with CEO Peter's habits. I spent most of the time there trying to clean CEO Peter's computer from the myriad of viruses that he would install by browsing sketchy sites, and even when I complained a lot about it to him, he said that he didn't know why there were so many viruses and kept doing it every single day. The place was full of drama, and after a while, my friend and I would pretend to have work to do there and spend time there just for the laughs. One day, May approached me furious, saying that she caught one of the sales reps browsing the internet instead of making calls. She wanted to disable the internet for the reps. I checked the logs and found that the rep had browsed the specs of one of the machines she was selling, a newer model she wasn't familiar with. So, cue malicious compliance. I disabled the internet for the whole company. About 2 minutes later, May, June, and CEO Peter came running to the server room, shouting about what the hell was happening to their internet. The accountant and sales rep pretty much never realized something had changed because they were hard at work. I told them that May made me do it. She said, but just for the reps. And I told them some story about not being able to block a specific IP because they were assigned dynamically. So they were about to change, and blah blah blah. CEO Peter was red as a tomato. He demanded to reinstate the internet for everyone. I looked at June. She nodded. I looked at May. She said, "Are you sure you can't just do it for them?" I said no. She exhaled. Okay then, the internet is back up for them. The next one is an entitled People Story. This incident happened around 2005 at Marshall's Creek Flea Market in Pennsylvania. A mother and her son, approximately 10 years old, were walking by my booth when the kid stopped. He noticed a box of single cards and started looking through them. The mother told the kid to put it down, saying they didn't have time for him to browse. Clearly the kid had had enough, and he said to her, "We always seem to have time for you to look at everything, but when I want to look, we don't have time." I instantly liked this kid, but she gave him a glare that suggested he would face consequences later. He asked me about the price of the cards, and I informed him they were 25 cents each. As he went through them, he paused and asked if a particular card was also a quarter. I examined it and unintentionally muttered, "Shoot!" It turned out to be a rookie A-Rod card, before his steroid scandal became public knowledge. She looked at it and said, "I wouldn't sell that for that price." Here's what happened. When I left my house to set up the market that weekend, I accidentally grabbed the card and placed it in my singles tray, intending to transfer it to my showcase. I know some readers may find it hard to believe that I sold it, but I did. I explained that it was my mistake and I always try to honor my word to kids. Adults usually understand that mistakes happen. She then told the boy to put it back and they would think about it and return later. Keep in mind, we're talking about a mere quarter. I said to her, "Ma'am, I'm doing this to keep my word to your son. This is a one-time offer. If you decline or walk away, I'll put this card in a snap-tight card holder, attach a $50 price tag to it, and display it in my showcase." She instructed the kid to put it back, claiming that she wouldn't be pressured. Remember, it's just a quarter. The kid became upset and started arguing. Then the troublesome mother declared, "Talking back, now you're not getting anything." At this point, the kid lost control, while the mother stood there with her arms folded, wearing a smug smile as if she had won the 7th game of the World Series. What she and I didn't know was that the father was approaching and witnessing the aftermath of her actions. He inquired about the situation, and she informed him that she was punishing the kid for talking back. He then started lecturing the boy about his behavior and so on. I couldn't allow this poor kid to be punished for her actions, so I spoke up. I said, "Sir, you should really know what happened." The mother yelled at me, "Mind your goddamn business." I responded, "It is my goddamn business. You caused a scene at my stand and drove away customers." A bit of an exaggeration, but whatever. Then she made a mistake and stated that he didn't need to know what happened. The father said, "Maybe he does." The father took the kid outside to the parking lot, and I could see him crouch down and place his hand on the boy's shoulder. Meanwhile, the mother was screaming at me. I removed the card box from the table and placed it beside me because I was afraid she would tear it up. Yes, this kind of thing has happened before. A few minutes later, they both returned, and the father asked me what had happened. I recounted the incident to him. He looked at her and told her that our stories matched. So unless the kid had sneaked away and we had planned this, she was responsible. He then asked her why. Her response? She didn't want him to have it. When asked why not, her answer was that she didn't need a reason. The father reached into his pocket for change, and I informed him that I wasn't going to sell it for that price anymore. However, I would if Mommy Dearest paid for it. Yes, I was rubbing it in. She shouted that there was no way she would give me anything. The father asked, "How much?" I suppose he was expecting the book price. I said 26 cents, but if you don't have a penny, you can owe it to me. As I started putting the card into a top-loader card holder, this insane woman actually tried to jump over my table to grab the card. She was screaming that she had said no, and how dare I sell it to him. A crowd gathered, and my neighbor explained to curious onlookers what had happened. Most of them laughed at her for being foolish. I handed the card to the father, and she continued screaming that she would tear it up at the first opportunity. The father told her that she wouldn't because he would put it in the safe at his office. I hope this woman receives the therapy she needs. And I can only imagine what she would have done if it had been 50 cents. The next one is an entitled parent story. I, 27F, had an older brother, 25M, who died in 2014. He was the kind of older brother any girl wanted, and we were close. He taught me valuable life lessons such as cooking, driving, and never giving up. He introduced me to anime and manga, and we would often go on little road trips. We even ignored our parents' favoritism towards my younger brother. Sadly, he died when a shooting occurred. He wasn't involved in any illegal activity, he was simply eating when it happened. An investigation took place and the police confirmed his innocence. He was only 25 at the time, and I was 19. I would be lying if I said I didn't fall into a deep depression. It reached a point where I stopped eating and lost around 55 pounds in just a month and a half after his passing. During that time, I only drank water and milk to fill myself up. I didn't want to get better until one day my former sister-in-law called me to inform me that he had left me some things. I met up with her, and the items he left behind included an album filled with Polaroid pictures of our crazy adventures, graphic anime tees, and a chain with both of our initials. Overwhelmed with emotion, I decided to seek help because he would have wanted to see me happy instead of consumed by sadness. It has been years since his passing, and I'm doing much better now. I have a tradition on his birthday where I visit his grave and leave flowers. I only stay for 2 minutes before singing him happy birthday, and then I leave. My therapist thinks it's a good idea. However, my parents, 50M and 59F, younger brother, 22M, and aunt, 52F, decided to stage an intervention, firmly believing that what I was doing was satanic. They thought I was trying to communicate with the dead, and insisted that I should have thrown away the things he left me. They even suggested I attend their church to rid myself of these diabolical ideas. I was shocked, and told them that I wouldn't stop this tradition, and that I had no intention of going to their church. I reminded them that this was about their older son, and if they continued to behave this way, I wouldn't hesitate to cut off contact with them. They continued to yell at me, and my aunt even went so far as to throw holy water at me. I had reached my limit and told them that we could talk when they stopped being religious fanatics. As of today, I want nothing to do with them. I left before any of them could say anything, and it has been a week since the incident. I have blocked their numbers. I have just freed myself from toxic family members, and I have no intention of returning to that environment ever again. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.